Hello and welcome to From the Beale End, the Burnley podcast. This is, of course, going to be the last episode of a very, very strange 2024 for the Clarets. Start of the year in the Premier League. Didn't last long there. Hurtled towards the trapdoor back into the Championship and currently sit just 3 places off that aforementioned trapdoor, albeit with an entrance going upwards rather than coming downwards. With me, Simon Evans, Chris Borden and Justin Connolly. We're going to look back at Burnley drawing 0-0 at Middlesbrough. That was on Sunday evening, the last game of the Championship season of 2024. And we're going to look ahead to Stoke City, which is happening tomorrow when you listen to this, hopefully, New Year's Day. So, Simon, let's start with you. Another decent performance. I mean, Boro, we saw that at the Turf. They're a bit of a tricky side, aren't they? They seem to lack a bit of identity for me. I'm not really sure what they are. They had a couple of, fairly poor results in the lead up to that, losing a 3-0 lead at home to Sheffield Wednesday. We go there. We have a couple of chances, probably have the best of the chances. Brownhill's miss in the second half, probably the best of the game. But what did you make of that performance? Another kind of continuation of Sheffield United, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that different from the Sheffield United performance, really, except we didn't get that second half of laying it about with a 2-0 advantage, did we? I mean, this is the way we play, and if we don't create a huge amount of chances, and if we put them away like we did, clinically at Sheffield United, then it's fantastic. If we get only one and a half, 2 chances, and we put them over the bar, then we end up with a 0-0 draw. That's the way we are, really. We're so tight at the back. We're very well organised in midfield. We're moving the ball about confidently. We looked a much better side than they did, I thought. But we still have that problem there that we don't create enough, and we're not quite clinical enough most of the time. So that's how we've ended up with a 0-0 draw at Middlesbrough, who I agree, they're a funny side, really, because there's a lot of things quite good about them, but they're just missing, I hate that cliche, quality, but they're just missing a couple of players who could take them into that top 6, but I know they've got a couple missing with injury. Morris was missing, wasn't he? But there's... Yeah, it's not a disastrous result. He's felt it was a game we could have won, though.
Yeah, and Justin, I mean, we've complained enough about the style of football and it being, unwatchable at times, but Scott Parker appears to have kind of come good on what he's been talking about. Look, we know what we want to be. We know the style of football we want to play, etc., etc. He's talked about that for weeks and weeks and weeks. And if you were to take that run of games from, the Watford game, the Norwich game, the Sheffield United game, the Middlesbrough game, there's been enough in that run to suggest that Scott Parker wants to play decent football, doesn't he? And that decent football will get you results.
Yeah, I think so. And I think he's sort of proving that a little bit now, isn't he? It had a bit of a similar vibe to those games where we just didn't really do very much, like the Derby game and stuff like that. To me, I think the opposition were probably better than that opposition. But if you go to somewhere like Middlesbrough with the record that they've got and the goals they've scored this season, they are going to be knocking on top 6. I think if you come away from that with a clean sheet and a point and a decent performance, it was an instantly forgettable game. But not every game can be like a classic, can it? I think our expectations were raised a little bit by what happened on Boxing Day. But I think Simon's right. It's just, if you don't take your chances, you don't win games, do you? But we seem to have got such a solid base defensively that it's not a calamity if we don't score a goal, especially away from home against one of the better sides in the division.
Yeah, and Chris, you said it before we kind of press record. We never look like conceding, do we? I mean, that back four with Trafford, between the sticks. I mean, Humphreys has really grown into his role, I think, at the left back. And he, again, up against apparently, one of the Championship's best wingers, kept him quiet. Roberts, we know what Roberts is like. And, I think he divides opinion sometimes with his attitude, but he's in a good run of form. And then the two centre halves, Egan Riley, arguably 6th, 7th choice if all players were fit at the start of the season. And obviously our mate Steve. That is a real unit, isn't it, in terms of, shutouts and keeping those clean sheets?
Yeah, I think we've said before that, man for man, we've had significantly better, back fours, individual. You look at we've been blessed, haven't we? Tarkovsky and May and Keane and Duff and Trippiers and Lowtons and Shackles and Stephen Ward, Charlie Taylors. To me, they're all, as good or better than we've got what we've got at present. But it's the organisation, isn't it? You can see that the sort of work that Parker's done. Like I say, without the ball, we are as good as anything in this league. Sort of knowing positions to take up, sort of the covering for each other, dropping in, the playing sides offside when need be. They can play a high line, they can drop in and soak up pressure. They've just been exceptional. And I say you go further forward, it's a case of. I think you sort of look back at some of these sort of frustrating bore draws, and you felt like we still wouldn't have scored in some of those if we were still playing now. But I think we sort of graduated. I thought some of the passing and movement, specifically in the first half, was exceptional. But it was just, I'd say, creating those golden opportunities, which we didn't quite. There was a situation where, Laurent was picked out, and the goalkeeper came out and narrowed the angle down well, and ended up winning a goal kick in the end. But he was one of two willing runners that would have broken the line. So many situations where quick, clever passing, particularly down that right hand side, where I thought Anthony was exceptional and gave Edmondson a torrid time from the start. Really, it's just, like I say, picking out those absolute killer passes, which they did second half with the pull back for Brownhill, which on any other occasion he takes, and then the one where the goalkeeper's made a bit of a hash of it, and he does what he does. He scores with a similar effort at Sheffield Wednesday early in the season. He's got it on target, not quite connected cleanly, and the centre half makes a ridiculously good block with his side. It's yeah, so they created the better openings. They looked the better side to me on the night. And I see, you look back at this block of games, Norwich away where nobody wins, you got to win. Sheffield United where nobody scores, never mind wins. We've done both. It's been a terrific run of form. If you'd have sort of said like 10 points out of the last 12, you'd have been absolutely thrilled. And say now we're just in lieu of Sheffield United's draw early in the day, it felt like a missed opportunity. But I think over the course of the season, it's a very good point.
Yeah, and it is all about momentum, isn't it, Simon? I mean, we again don't have much rest time. We've got Stoke City, at Turf Moor tomorrow, New Year's Day, and then the big one, Blackburn Rovers at Ewood Park on Saturday. I think going into those games, I think we were perhaps a little bit worried prior to or after the Derby game, weren't we? I think there was some talk amongst certain people on this call that whether we were feeling a bit nervous about a trip to Ewood Park. Now, look, we're not going to tempt any fate and ask for scorelines because that always fucks us up. But, it is about momentum, isn't it? It's about getting yourself in the right position. Justin's always talked about turn of the year. Are you still going to be there? Are you going to be top three? Are you going to challenge? It is really now about kind of trying to extend that run into it and making sure that actually we pick off teams like Stoke City, we know are probably going to be more in the mode of a Portsmouth or a Plymouth, difficult to break down, low block. And then, of course, gloves are off at Ewood on Saturday.
Well, I think if we are going to get promoted this year, we have to step it up a level. I do think that. I mean, I think the work that's been done, as we said on the last pod, you can see what Parker's been building. The results are coming. The consistency of performance is there. There's a good shape to the team. There's no big surprises when the team's announced on a Saturday. When you get the club official Twitter account puts it out. I mean, we got used to last year to just having this 20-minute debate about, well, what's that team going to look like? We know exactly what the team's going to look like, regardless of the personnel, and the personnel isn't changing much either. But we've got to step it up a level. We've got to be more clinical. We've got to create more chances. We've got to turn that statistical domination we have in games, because, if you look at the stats from that game at Middlesbrough, we won in pretty much every department, shots on target and all possession and all the key metrics we're winning on, except we've ended up with the same as Middlesbrough. So, we've got to find a way to turn it up a notch, and I think we've said it several times now. I think that thing is a centre forward. I think that's what takes us to the next level. If not, we're to find something internally, that gives us that. Maybe Foster, maybe a slightly different role for Fleming. I tend to agree with. I think it was Chris who was saying last time that Fleming looks at his most dangerous in that sort of inside left, inside right position, coming towards the outside of the box, rather than being the target man. He's doing a decent job as target man. I'm not criticising him. But if we add that number 9 and we could play Fleming and perhaps Brownhill behind them, especially at home, that might be the way we turn it up a notch. So I'm pleased with the way it's going. Of course, I think any reasonable person watching Burnley will say that they've improved throughout the season. So far, we've reached the halfway point in a good position in the league. We're playing with that consistency and looking very well organised and confident. But we do need to just go up a notch or two.
Yeah, and just in January transfer window coming up, we'll probably do a bit more of an in-depth look at that at some point. But strikers are hard to come by, aren't they? I think somebody said on here, it may have even been you, or somebody was recounting somebody saying it to them. It probably is going to be let's have a look at who's the League One leading goal scorer and see if you can prize them away, isn't it? That's the kind of thing, which comes with its own risks, of course. Are they going to make the step up? I mean, it's good to see Lyle Foster back. I mean, his minutes have been restricted a little bit, and you wonder whether that's just managing caseload. But it is probably the biggest conundrum now for Scott Parker, isn't it? About how do you unlock them extra goals that you need to win promotion and to keep the pressure on everybody else around you?
Yeah, that's going to be that's the big issue for me, I think. I was going to say more or less what Simon's just said. I don't think Fleming is the answer in that role. Too many times he's not there. He's not there where he should be. When the crosses are coming in, or when the through balls come through, he hasn't got that instinct that the striker's got. And he's not. We signed him as a player who was a successor and as a number 10, so it's a little bit of an ask for him to then step in. I know it's out of necessity because we've had injury issues and so on, but I don't know. Maybe Foster is the answer, because I'm sure that some of the chances that Fleming's failing to get on the end of it, he would have been there and thereabouts, because he's a natural striker, isn't he? Although, to be fair, over the last year or so, he's not really impressed that much in the Premier League. He was a bit hot and cold, wasn't he? And I don't know, but I think he's certainly going to end up being an option. As for who we can bring in, like you said, that we need somebody who's going to score 10, 15 goals in the second half of the season, don't we, to do what Simon says and that step up to that level. It doesn't look like anybody's going to run away with it, but it doesn't also look like that Leeds or Sheffield United or and other are going to drop away, are they? So we can't afford to drop that many points. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, maybe Alan Pace can spin his little statistic program up and punch in some numbers about what he wants, and we can pick somebody from somewhere abroad, somebody that nobody's ever heard of. We've done that before, haven't we? who can slot
Maybe
into this
AI
side.
scout will discover someone. Yeah,
Exactly. He'll fit that little hole that we don't have the peg for at the moment. One encouraging thing I think is over the last few games, I've noticed we've started playing some really quick, incisive passing in and around the box, which is exactly the sort of thing that you need to be able to do to break down these teams who sit back. So if we can carry on doing that against some of the lesser teams, we might start picking up more points against them than we did in the first half of the season, and then it'll all count at the end of the day, won't it?
Yeah, it certainly will. Now, one of the phrases that I always like when somebody returns is like a new signing, and very special appearance, like a new signing, Paul Woodhouse. We've amazingly, probably for the first time in a good few weeks, got the band back together in its entirety, mixing metaphors.
Has he been on the grass long enough? Has he?
Well, is he Daesh fit? There you go. We have to get Daesh in. I know there's a lot of people who play be all end bingo and like a mention of Sean. So, but he's looking fit, isn't he? He's looking streamlined. He's had his head bicked, and he looks like he's ready for a stint up front. We were just discussing the conundrum facing Scott Parker in January, which is where the hell do we find a striker from? I presume you've spent the last 20 minutes while we've been waiting for you to join this podcast recording, looking up all of the strikers we could sign from MLS and anywhere else.
Well, obviously, that's why I was late. And I get confused between the idea of 5 and 1 and 6 and what have you. You know what I mean? It's just me being a dick. But I was weird, reading something along those lines, but I can still only get Ferguson as a name, even though everybody seems to be panicking on from the other be-all end about bloody left-backs. But Ferguson, for me, definitely. I will throw as much money as is humanly possible at that fella, and see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, you can go now. There you go. Brief appearance, subbed on and subbed off like Alan Harper back in the 90s. There we go. I mean, Chris, we've mentioned Ferguson from Brighton before. One name that I've just been keeping an eye on over the last few weeks, Louis Barry, who, of course, has been on loan at Stockport County this season from Aston Villa. 15 goals in 23 league appearances. He has been recalled by Aston Villa as of tomorrow's game. So I think he's playing for Stockport County tomorrow and then being recalled. We talked about League One strikers. I don't know if there's anybody else above him in the goal scoring charts, but he seems like he's got plenty. He does have a bit of a decent record. Last year, albeit in League Two, 9 league goals in 21 games. He feels a bit like Ferguson in terms of, schooled well in a good academy at a good Premier League club. Is that going to be the answer? I mean, Justin mentioned Pace's number crunching and his love of private flights all over Europe trying to find unearthed diamonds. But it feels almost under Scott Parker like we're looking a bit closer to home, and he's perhaps using some of his contacts to speak to people at Premier League clubs and clubs where he might have a bit of an in or an inkling that there is a diamond closer to home.
I've not seen enough of Barry, but obviously he was at Barcelona, wasn't he, for a spell when he was younger, and he's come back and he's had to sort of ply his trade away from Villa. Hopefully he makes a go of it there. But he's not your archetypal number 9. I think he's more of a sort of will-o'-the-wisp type, isn't he? But if you're looking at a number 9, do we want an out-and-out number 9? I mean, we got linked with McBurney the other day, which sort of really split people. I mean, I wouldn't entertain. I
thought of you when I saw that room.
I wouldn't entertain it, but we sort of spoke. You don't know how the dominoes will fall. Obviously, Kiefer Moore played against us the other week, but Sheffield linked with Brereton Diaz again. I think, if you're looking at the sort of areas that Brereton Diaz took up when he was at Blackburn, sort of plundering that left-hand side, he could sort of maybe play off someone and sort of fill that sort of left-hand side role. And I don't know. I'd like to think, like I say, if Leeds and Sheffield are looking at certain targets, I'd like to think we're fishing in the same pool. And I think that would be, I saw Tom Cannon get a mention as well. That we've mentioned. He's one of those sort of out and out old school goal scorers. Really, in the right side, I think he'd score an awful lot of goals. And again, I think Sheffield. I saw them link with him. It's an interesting one, isn't it? I say we've seen Foster sort of flicker into life on occasion, and at Villa last season he was absolutely magnificent. But you almost don't know what we're going to get from him now. We can't hang our hats on him. Fleming, as the guys have said, has done a reasonable job, but isn't. The example last night where the ball's played to him, and a centre forward takes that on and goes for a goal, and he's sort of done the unselfish thing and tried to knock it down for Brownhill, and between them, the chance is gone. But it can't go. It has to be attended to, that situation. I think we can't be going through January not bolstering that unit, and I'm sure Scott Parker's got a few targets up his sleeve there, and fingers crossed there's the funds there to land them.
Yeah, and of course tomorrow, New Year's Day, we will see both Cannon and Ball on the pitch at Turf Moor. Of course, Tom Cannon, fresh from his goal-scoring heroics for Stoke against Sunderland. We'll get a close look at him. And, of course, Russell Ball will be running that absolute wank fest at the rollout at half-time where somebody has to kick a ball towards the centre circle and they never get it right, but somebody walks away with hospitality tickets. But Woody, I mean, there's a few names and obviously lots of teams are going to be wanting to fish in that pond. The Championship's so tight this year, you do think that whoever has a really good January, and that's probably twofold, not losing best players, but also being able to reinforce in the areas that the various teams need, are probably going to end up making up that top six. You can see a few teams currently in the top six, maybe even in that top two, if they can't get reinforcements in for whatever reason, or they lose players to injury. I know Chris Wilder whinging about their kind of illness and injury list. You feel that probably more than ever, because it's not going to be a runaway title winner, January is going to be important for a lot of clubs, isn't it?
It is. In fact, you've probably got a runaway top four, haven't you? Especially top three. And out of those, whoever does the smartest business, the canniest business, winds up with fewest injuries, like you say, are going to be set up best for the latter half of the season. And really, I think if you look at the people who we have to come back, as we've spoken about on several occasions, it's probably between us and Leeds, quietly away. Sheffield United have problems, and they're going to have to either spend well and heavily in order to find a couple of replacements and just expand their squad a little bit. Whereas, we're just looking at maybe one or two definite positions to strengthen. And then hopefully the people who come back will be able to contribute, and that'll stand us in real good stead, I would have thought, the second half of the season.
Yeah, and Simon, it's not about going out and spending the most money, is it? I mean, Premier League clubs for years and years, well, Chelsea, I guess, and a couple of others seem to think that, a good transfer business meant going out and spending loads, and we've done it ourselves, haven't we? As Woody said, it's about smart spending, innit? It's about what do you really need? Because let's be honest, we don't really need anything else other than a striker, do we? As long as we don't lose anybody. I mean, attacking players-wise, we've got plenty coming back. Midfield, central midfield, we're currently playing 4 central midfielders in essentially 3 positions. It is about us being really laser focused on that final piece of the jigsaw, isn't it?
Yeah, and the fact that, if we did put a number 9 in there, whether it be a big target man or the Andy Payton type or the Danny Ings type or whatever, then, Fleming drops back a line or half a line into that role that he played for Millwall so effectively, and then what do you do about Brownhill, who is 3rd top scorer in the Championship this season, and he's playing really well in that position behind. Do you play 2 in that position? Is there a place for Fleming in the team then at that point? How do you, if you're playing 2 there, then you've got to drop one out of the midfield, which is looking pretty good. So that's to say we've got plenty of options, haven't we? We have got plenty of options. What we haven't got is that quality number 9 to score the goals. Jay has been in and has done a sterling job, but he's not the answer to scoring 15 goals in the second half of the season. And who else is there? Well, we've talked about Foster, and then the other option is Hutonji, who you know, let's be honest, looks like a flop signing at this stage, doesn't he? Because we've been short up front, and Parker, who sees him every day in training, has not once thought he's the answer to play at centre forward. So I think that gives us a clue as to what he's been showing on the training ground. So I don't think we need anything else. You know, you're looking at maybe Ramsey being back at some stage in the next month or so, maybe Redmond being back, you know, and then there's other players. At the back, we don't need to change anything, but we're going to have, hopefully, Egdell back. We've got Edgar there. Doesn't sound good for Bayer playing this season at all, does it? Really, at this moment, you know, if he comes back at any stage, that's a bonus for this year. That sounds like he's had a lot of complications with that one. So it's just that number 9 position, and it is hard to get someone. I think, you know, I agree totally, and we said it before that Ferguson is the answer, and I just wonder, you know, if we haven't got a sneaky little chance there that. If he goes to a Premier League club, if they loan him to someone battling down the bottom, does he get what Brighton want? Brighton surely want him after him not featuring much to go and get half a season of regular football and goals under his belt and come back to them next season in really good fettle and full of confidence. Is he going to get that at Leicester City? You know, is he going to get that at Wolves? I'm not sure he is. He might be coming off the bench desperately trying to feed off scraps for the last 10 minutes or something like that. I don't think that helps his development. So we should be really making a big push for him, and I think he'd really make the difference. But there aren't, you know, do you take a punt on signing one of these sort of League One or Championship goal scorers? You're still looking at a decent chunk of money for that. Whereas someone like Ferguson, we can get on loan and then have a look at things in the summer when we're probably going to have a rebuild on our hands, whatever happens.
Yeah, and Justin, I mean, I think Scott Parker's already alluded to it. There is probably going to be 1 or 2 players going out. You know, he who shall not be mentioned, probably being one of them, although there's some rumours that Alan Pacey's not keen for Mike Trezor to leave until he's played for Burnley again. So I don't know how that standoff's going to end. I'm sure at some point in the future someone's going to write a PhD on that signing. But if you were looking at kind of freeing up some space in that squad, because it is still a big squad. We've got, you know, I think we had 4 centre halves on the bench a couple of games ago. There is a bit of wriggle room, isn't there, in terms of getting players out on loan to kind of get them either, you know, back up to full fitness or get them the games they need to keep them ticking over. Where would you be looking at kind of, you know, getting not rid of players, but letting some of these players perhaps go out and get some football? Is there any kind of names that spring to mind for you there?
Well, I have to say, I think Masengo's been pretty unlucky in this first half of the season because he did sort of feature a little bit, didn't he, in that period where we were just settling down after the transfer window and just before it when half the squad didn't want to play apparently. And I thought he did all right. You know, I thought his trajectory could quite easily have gone the same way as Egan Riley. I think he could if he'd had a decent run in the side. So just for his sake, really. I mean, from everything I hear about him, he absolutely loves the Clarets. He loves Burnley. He loves the club. He loves the town. He loves everything about it. But he needs to be playing football, doesn't he? He's getting to that age now where if he's not playing, you know, he's going backwards. So he's the main one, really. I mean, looking beyond that, there aren't that many names on the list who really you would see. You know, I'd be comfortable letting him go, apart from the obvious one. A guy, maybe he's one of those, isn't he, that kind of needs football.
Yeah, he's out injured at the minute, isn't he? I think Scott Parker made a brief reference to him still being a bit of a wear. So the usual, we don't know about it until the name springs up at some point.
So apart from that, you know, if we do get another striker, and maybe Hutonji can go somewhere and play some football because he's not getting much football here, is he? But apart from that, I think it's mostly the injured players who we need to get back on the get back into the squad, and they're going to be the ones that are going to add that depth at the end of the season. At the moment, the team we have got options, but it's only in limited parts of the pitch, isn't it? It's only in limited places, and I think I think those players need to stay, but the ones who are injured, they're the ones who are going to bring the quality and bring a bit more depth to it. But it's still a massive squad, isn't it? And it's the wage bill must still be enormous, given we've just come down from the Premier League. So you just don't know where the wriggle room is, But I'd say Trezor, and I'd say Masengo are the two that I think are most likely to go out the door.
Delcroix, maybe.
Sambo.
Yeah, remember him?
I think he was. I think they were expecting him to go out on loan, weren't they, at the start of the season? And then for whatever reason, that kind of fell through. I think, didn't it?
Another like Trezor. I think he's come in and he's, looks like they've made an error. Just if it's not going to happen, just get shut. Trezor, I say, I'm still convinced he's. I'm not convinced. He doesn't exist. It's just.
He's going to stun us. He's going to stun us with some bizarre move in January, isn't he? United are going to sign him or something.
But to see him linked with Leeds, I mean, how on earth does that one work? We'll give you, and they won't. Leeds aren't going to stump up, so you'd be loaning him. Yeah, we're just going to loan our promotion stroke title rivals an £18 million asset. There you go, crack on. I mean, it's ludicrous, isn't it? Yeah, it would make zero sense from a sporting or financial perspective. And let's have it right. Let's ship him off to wherever, Turkey or some other cobblers league in Europe like that, where he can bolster his CV and look good again. And hopefully, like Vegas, where he bumped up his value by being magnificent for 6 months at Besiktas, and then showing his worth because he weren't good enough at United for 6 months. And it just absolutely modern football. It stinks, doesn't it? Why commit? I know the lad's had an injury and he's had little complications and bits and pieces, but the overriding sort of feeling is he didn't want to come here in the first place. He didn't look remotely interested in the fleeting opportunities he had, and it's been a waste of a wage for 18 months. Let's just cut our losses and get shut. I'm not bothered if he ever pulls a Burnley shirt on ever again, because I can't remember him pulling one on in first place, to be honest.
Well, he was leaving the training ground at 1:30 this afternoon. I was going to Padiham Tesco, and he was coming out of Gorthorpe in a rather nifty-looking Mercedes G-Wagon, I think they call them. I think most of the players have them. But yeah, he clearly there at 1:30. I don't know what time training finished, but maybe he was hiding and just got himself out of the kit bin at that point. But Woody, I mean, let's look ahead very briefly to Stoke City. I mean, changing manager, they're going through managers, like some of the clubs we used to take the piss out of. And Jonathan Walters, former Burnley player, now sporting director, came out and basically went, "It's on me, not the right fit," i.e. we picked a bad one. But they got a win against Sunderland on Sunday, weren't it? Yeah, I'm losing track of days, as we often do at this time of year. And they're going to provide a different type of opposition, perhaps, to Sheffield United, Watford, Middlesbrough, in terms of almost a throwback to that period where we were a bit at breaking teams down, aren't they?
They were very fortunate against Sunderland yesterday. Sunderland basically missed an absolute glut of chances. And if we do that, then we'll have a problem. But they didn't look any great shakes or any greater shakes than when we played them previously. And again, they should be somebody we should be able to put reasonably to the sword. I don't think they've changed that much. They still look relatively mundane and they don't do anything too spectacular. So let's get another 3 points.
Relatively mundane and not too spectacular, Sam. That's the kind of opposition you want on New Year's Day, isn't it? At home, perhaps a bit of a cold and blustery day. If we approach the game with the same kind of, purpose, and I keep using purpose when I talk about how we've been the last couple of games, you would expect us to kind of find a better way past a team like Stoke, where perhaps we have struggled previously, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and what we're really due. I mean, since them first two games of the season, have we battered anyone? I don't think we have we? I don't think there's been one of them games. We are really due a 4-0 or something like that, and it would be. I'm not saying that's going to happen because we're not creating enough chances, but an early goal or just something just to loosen it up a little bit. It would be so nice to see us bring that attack in because the crowd on Turf Moor. Obviously, I've not been part of it, but the crowd on Turf Moor, I do feel as I've had to watch a fair lot of games where you come off saying, well, that were all right. But there's not been a huge amount to sort of get them on their feet and excited and give them a buzz going, oh, it'd be great to have a game like that. But again, where are those goals going to come from? It needs the opportunities being created. But the bit of optimism on that front is Anthony's performances. I think he's been really, this last month and a half, he seems to have really grown into his role. Seems to have done better since we've been playing with one winger as well. Since Koleosho's been rested, seems like Anthony. I don't know why that would be the case because obviously they play on the opposite side of the field from each other. But it just feels like he's really starting to come of age a little bit. So, yeah, maybe it could be a game where he has a field day, yeah.
Let's just end then. Very, very quick mini review of 2024. I opened the show by saying it was, a year that started in the Premier League, went downhill very, very fast, although I think we were going, hurtling downhill before we got to the turn of the year. But just very quickly then, what's been the highlight? Let's not dwell too much on the shite parts of 2024, of which there were many in the opening months. But what's been the highlight for each of you in this of 2024? It might be, the odd bright shining light in the Premier League. I can't imagine it is. But let's start with you, Justin. What's been the best, either best performance, best pie you've had, best fourth official falling over? What's been your highlight of 2024?
Christ, that's a very difficult question to answer, isn't it? It's not been good, has it? I mean, just thinking off the top of my head, nothing really springs to mind apart from that performance on Boxing Day against Sheffield United. After what we've seen for the last sort of couple of months, it was really heartening, I thought, to see them perform like that. Vincent Kompany leaving, perhaps, might have been up there. By the time that happened, I'd just had enough of him, and I'd had enough of that football that we were playing. So yeah, it's not been a great 12 months, but I think we sit here on the cusp of 2025 with a lot of hope that the next 6 months can provide us with some highlights that we can be talking about at this point next year, maybe. Fingers crossed.
Excellent. Chris, what about you? Do you share that joy at Vincent exiting stage left for Bavaria, or have you got is there something else in there, an individual performance or a goal or a collective performance that you go, that's my highlight of 2024 from a Clarets point of view?
Well, if you look back, there's a few results that really, at the time made you feel proud, to be a Burnley fan, but in the context of everything, it ultimately meant nothing. You look at the result at Chelsea earlier this year, which was just absolutely fabulous. To go to a $1 billion $1 billion team.
I should have said that because I was there.
Yeah, and they were, to have the injustice of the sending off and to come away by frustrating Chelsea yet again, which is always fabulous to go to Stamford Bridge and see the self-righteous home fans just weeping and wailing again. And then again, you look at to go to Luton on the Friday night, which looked a really stern test, and to turn in a performance like that, and then you look, well, Burnley's performance, hasn't transpired to be in that vein. Luton are a shadow. Who knew they wouldn't be as good as they were last year, having got rid of Townsend, Barkley, Ogbene, is it, and a couple of others. But what a surprise. And and just things like that. I think, like I said, Justin's right to flag up Chef U as a consummate away performance. And really, it's tough, isn't it? You're looking at sort of performances over the calendar year. Steve coming in January to see, he wasn't the one racing out the exit door at the end of the season. He was one answering, journalist questions at Sunderland, and saying it's been a strange time and people are off. Person next year, you wonder if he's going to be here. But he was making no noises about wanting to get out, and his level of performance has been exceptional. He's the best centre half in the Championship. He is a Premier League centre half, and I'm sure he'll be playing there very soon if it's not with Burnley. I mean, and if he would, if Burnley aren't to be promoted and he gets a move, I don't think anyone begrudges him, because he's done his done his time with Burnley. He's taken the hit, played in the Championship, and he'll have done his best to get Burnley back there. But yeah, other than that, Brownie, he gets a bit of stick, but he loves the club. He proper take to things. He's coming up to his 5th year now at the club. He's been a magnificent piece of business. It might not quite be good enough for the Premier League, as we've seen, but he's given it a hell of a good go. He can hold his head high, and his goal return, it should be in double figures. I've no doubt he'll end up with 15 or so come the end of the season, and I've no doubt he'll be in the Championship Team of the Year again. And so that's off to him. He does get a bit of stick, but to me he represents Burnley's beating heart, and I'd like to see him, maybe get a new deal, but if he wants to look elsewhere, again, I don't think anyone begrudges him.
No, and I think I have been uber critical of Brown. I think I called him the ghost at one point, didn't I, last season?
Yeah, you did.
I did, yeah.
You have been the most critical of him, definitely.
I have, haven't I? Yeah. I've been quite quiet, though, these recent games where he's scored 3 in the last 4, although I was very tempted when he blazed that over last night, I have to say. But Simon, what about you? I mean, you've obviously got your kind of, different views on different players and things like that, as we all have. But what's been the kind of standout moment for you, highlight-wise? Is it a development of a player? Is it a result? What's the best of 2024 for you?
Well, I just think, to be honest, as a sort of journalist stroke fan, the utter madness of that transfer window in the summer is never going to be forgotten. I mean, I'm not saying I want to experience it again, but it was just ridiculous, like what was happening every day, and the rumours that didn't come off. Lyle Foster's going to Ipswich, Collier Shaw were going to Wolves, but all the mad ones that did happen. Amdouni did next to nothing at Burnley, ends up playing for Benfica. Wout Weghorst comes wandering back. I mean, it was just mad. It was a soap opera, wasn't it? Really, when you step back from it, it was quite entertaining, really. And then at the end, we have this mad rush and all these people like Don Pace, you hero for signing Zion Fleming and Hutonji, and we were all getting every new signing is a world beater, and then that, and all that coming after that Luton game, which was. That Luton away game at the start of the season was just insane. It was absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? Vitinho and Audebert and it was just like a little glimpse of what this season might have been like, and then it was all completely destroyed. I mean, nothing like that's ever happened before. I don't think anything can compare to that window in all our years of supporting Burnley, can it? It was absolute madness. So is that a highlight or a low light? I don't know, but it's an unforgettable moment, put it that way. I mean, you just look at the team from a year ago as well. I mean, the turnover we've had. I was looking at the team lineup against Villa, and you go, Trafford, Bayer, O'Shea, Taylor, Vitinho, Brownhill, Sander Berger, Wilson Audebert, replaced by Mike Trezor, Johan Goodmanson. I mean, that Goodmanson story itself was absolutely insane. Gets slaughtered on a television series by Vincent Kompany, disappears, meets the chairman on a flight, comes back to the club, scores a goal, everyone's cheering him, and then it goes off to Saudi Arabia the next week. I mean, it was complete madness. I mean, it's just been insane. But so maybe one of the reasons why we've been a little bit underwhelmed at times by the sort of Parker era has just been how sensible it's been. you know, it's been like gradually building a team and improving. And like, if we go in January and actually sign that centre forward and continue improving, it would be quite remarkable after a period of utter chaos and anarchy to end the year with like an example of like well-planned progression. So yeah, that's as I'm saying, the transfer window is my highlight of the year.
He got quite animated there, didn't he, Woody? I mean, that was probably about as animated as we've seen him for a while. But he's
quite
right,
exciting, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's right, though, isn't he? I mean, there was that almost weird kind of, I don't know, sadistic enjoyment at where's the hell's this going to go? And obviously everything came out. And the one person I think who came out of that really well, and we've mentioned it several times before, is Scott Parker, isn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, the way he dealt with that, I mean, he looked knackered after the Sunderland game, like him and Matt Williams had been up till God knows what time and, up at whatever hour in the morning. But I mean, Simon's right. I mean, if we end this season with promotion, we can all sit back with a glass of something and a cigar and think to ourselves, bloody hell, we didn't spot that after that Sunderland game. But that aside, what's your highlight for this calendar year?
I think probably piggybacking off that a little bit, it's our defensive makeup, how well we've been at the back, and take probably heap praise on somebody besides Steve, Egan Riley, how we've spoken about this, this transfer maelstrom and whatever, and we had this lad sat there who hadn't played, hadn't done anything, who just waltzes in as his makeshift centre half that nobody expected anything of, and he's going to be one of the first three you're now putting on the team sheet with, the folks that we have in reserve who we know are damn good centre halves, that it's going to be very, very difficult to displace him. And I think that speaks to what Scott Parker's managed to put together, and this group of players who all seem a decent set of lads, really. So I think, it's not quite as sexy as what we thought we'd want it to be. But I think at the end of the season, if we do wind up going up and we're able to look back on a full season's defensive record similar to this, then that'll be fairly special in a slightly different way. We like the fancy records of over 100 points and over 100 goals and all that kind of business. But I think the way that we're shaping up as a defensive unit will be as impressive, if not more so, if we carry it on.
Yeah, and just to finish, I think my highlight was probably that Sheffield United away win from earlier in the season, where it looked like we were just on a little bit of a run. Go to Bramall Lane and win 4-1, and I think me and Simon were doing some kind of test live broadcast that day, weren't we? A live watch along. Yeah. And it was one of those really amazing kind of games where we were a bit like, God, this is pretty good. Like two goals just before half time, and then, some really great finishes. And then, yeah, as everyone's mentioned, I think the progression, I think as football fans, if you've gone from one philosophy to another, like we have at a whim over the last couple of seasons, you want to see progression, don't you? And I think you've hit the nail on the head, Woody, with someone like Egan Riley. I think it's that development. I know he splits opinion, but I think Trafford is also worth a mention. I think the last couple of performances, he's come in for balls. He's looking more confident. Will he become a future England number one? Will he be the £100 million player that Vincent Kompany used to bang on about? We're not sure. I can't see it myself. Maybe Mike Trezor. Maybe Trezor will be that £100 million man at some point when he discovers whether he wants to play football or not. But yeah,
it's about a third of the way there. But how much he's cost us so far, isn't it?
Very much so. Very much so. Let's leave it there. Slightly extended version of I don't know if this is a debrief or a normal episode. We'll probably just put it out as a normal episode. But we did debrief Middlesbrough. We'll be back at some point again. The days and everything are so messed up. We will be back at some point before Blackburn Rovers. It may be kind of Thursday for Friday again. I'm not sure, but we'll look at when we're back. Until then, enjoy New Year's Eve. Enjoy tonight, whatever you're doing, wherever you are in the world. Look forward to Burnley versus Stoke City tomorrow. And up the Clarets.